good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of whatever this show is called. Tonight we are going live with our cryptocurrency investment strategist, Chaz. Chaz is right now in the market. Chaz, can you tell us what is going on out there?
Well, what the does it look like, Sharon? I'm standing quite possibly in the epicenter of the financial apocalypse. The devastation is beyond words, Sharon. I just saw a man screaming my tendies and throw himself off a bridge. One man who worked at McDonald's lost his entire portfolio, all $43. The annals of history will one day record this event alongside 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and the Great Depression. Back to you, Sharon.
Chaz, am I correct in that Bitcoin is down around 10% today?
Do me a favor, Sharon. You see this? What the does that look like to you? That's my ETH call. It's worth $200. TA says it's going to 2,000, but when I go to sell, nothing happens. So if you want to drag your fat ass out of that studio to come do what I do, be my guest.
Chaz, I can see you're really feeling the impact of today's market volatility. Certainly some of your bags are down. Is there anything up?
Yeah.
Gotta love the mainstream media, huh? Hold on a sec. Hey. Today's most important topic, the top post on our Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto made out of US dollars. He's got the most unimpressed impressed face. It's funny how this poor guy has become the face of Bitcoin. It could have been multiple people who worked on Bitcoin before releasing it, but this guy gets all the credit. Now, I have some interesting news for you. Apparently, recently, it has been confirmed. We are in a bear market. Crazy, right? Crazy. Apparently so. Bitcoin with 65% losses over the last 9 or so months, Ethereum with over 80%, but now it's official. I'm glad we can agree there. I was in some confusion, personally. Being serious for a second, the real reason that this is the case is because of a technical analyst indicator known as the 200-day moving average now has declared that it is. And I know these indicators can definitely be of some use. I just find it funny that there's this huge disconnect between what is the reality of the situation and what some key indicator is saying in whether or not it's actually a bear market. But anyway, why is it 200 days? That's a good question. Why not 210? Why not 190? The answer? Human psychology. That is actually the answer. Wish I could give you a better answer, but that's about it. Many see it as a useful indicator, and it can kind of be if you put a lot of stock into it. The fact that Bitcoin is still at around its current price after this 200 DMA, then you have some empirical evidence, I guess, that Bitcoin is officially at the bottom. Again, I think that's been rather obvious, but thank you. Moving on from bad to a lot worse. Next crash will be worse than the Great Depression, says experts. Experts who can do nothing about it. We think the major economies are on the cusp of this turning into the worst recession we have seen in 10 years. US household debt now exceeds levels that exceeds the 2008 peak. We won't be able to call it a recession. It's going to be worse than the Great Depression. Not very nice. Now, shall we rub our hands together in glee at the thought that this is going to be big for Bitcoin? One thing I will say is that it does kind of show the importance of a global currency, the fact that it's less susceptible to bad actors causing these types of crises. However, no, I don't think it would. I think Bitcoin would tank as well. The reason for it is I don't see people losing their jobs, people making less money from their businesses, people struggling financially in general to be precipice, catapults, whatever you want to call it, for Bitcoin's growth. I understand why some people think it would be, but not me personally. If you disagree, let us know in the comments why. Very interested in this topic. Moving on to Bitcoin Cash news. One of Bitcoin Cash's main evangelists, you could say, in Yihan Wu, says that sidechains and the Lightning Network are good solutions for scaling. The man possibly solely responsible for the coin surviving post-fork by propping up its network seemingly single-handedly thinks sidechains and Lightning Network are good solutions. Although the whole purpose of forking Bitcoin was so that you could have one that decides to have SegWit and scale off-chain, and one that is going to be more pure and scale on-chain, because that's what Satoshi wanted, even though he specifically... Anyway, the amount of bashing that the Lightning Network has gotten from the Bitcoin Cash community at times was severe, omnipresent, claiming stuff like, those Bitcoins on the Lightning Network aren't your Bitcoins, they are block streams, etc. I'm personally very confused by this news. Was it really all about money and power? The more time that goes on, the more times I think that this conspiracy sketch I made during the time of the fork is actually more likely to be truth. And maybe I was just woke AF back then. Roll it. Okay, settle down. Settle down. Yihan, shut up! We have done tremendously well in preventing SegWit for so many years. And keeping our mining advantage intact. Am I right, people? But we must get real. The peasants have revolted. They call it the user-activated soft fork movement. So, we will give them SegWit. But we will give it to them on our terms, not theirs. We will hard fork the network. Even though SegWit only requires a soft fork, we will hard fork it. We'll give it some arbitrary reason, like a base block size limit increase, like they've been begging for so long. And in the code for the hard fork, we'll nuke it. And we will kill Bitcoin with 100% of users and miners. We will hard fork it and we will kill Bitcoin forever.
But why would we do this?
Craig, sit back down. If you would have convinced people you were the real Satoshi like we discussed, this would have been so much easier. Instead, you've only embarrassed yourself. The reason we would be doing this, the real reason is, we will fork the network before we kill Bitcoin. We'll create a new Bitcoin. A big base block size, let's say. But this one primarily won't have SegWit. We'll call it the real Bitcoin. The one that more originally follows Satoshi's design. Greg, if you would have just... Once we kill Bitcoin, we will pump the new Bitcoin past the old Bitcoin's all-time high. We will get more block rewards from it. How about 100,000 more coins, people? Does that sound good? We'll do that, and we'll keep our mining advantage intact. Now, for the record, I'm not claiming that I know, but it does look more likely to be truth than the other extreme. You know what? I love you guys. You guys are so special to me. Us getting together, like looking after the future of people and their money, and just being so open and honest about it. There's no organization in the world like you guys. I freaking love you, man. I love you, man. Okay, so there's this thing that Ivan on Tech does, which I think is pretty cool. Not just the way he pronounces Ethereum, although that is very cool. It's that he does occasionally a post-ICO update on projects which he has covered pre-ICO, during the ICO, to see basically what progress they've made, and I think that's a really good idea. Might try and do that with a few projects that I visited before. Firstly, we're going to look at Turnio, which I covered a couple months ago, because they've had some interesting updates. So very basically, Turnio has this hyper-fast blockchain known as Lexicon, which they are providing primarily for enterprise businesses, fintech, government, advertising, basically any big industry requiring an ultra-fast blockchain. Lexicon is a third-party verified million transactions a second, and so yeah, massive scale in order to drive adoption by these huge businesses. I got a few comments after the last video that I did on them saying, what is the token economics? Why should we hold this? Which I think is an excellent question, one that I didn't really get into the meat of. So for the average user who is not running an enterprise business, they have developed something called the Block Card. It's a physical debit card that you can use anywhere that credit cards are accepted, and you can pay with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Stellar, and Turnio coins. There's a video posted by one of the founders using it at Starbucks. Does a great job of showing how frictionless the process is. I personally want one of these debit cards. Turnio, if you are watching, hit me up. I do think these debit cards are a great way to spur an adoption though. Being able to actually spend your crypto, I think, is a good thing. Turnio is basically SAP, Ripple, and Visa rolled into one. They are doing a lot. They're delivering a product, and I think that's rare to see from companies post-ICO, so good on them. Hopefully going to be a success in the blockchain space. And that was it from me today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.